Hello friends, my name is Pastor Alyssa, and today, October 22nd, 2023, is a historic day for our South San Diego Circuit community. We have been together for 4 months now, which is really hard to believe. I feel like it's just gone so very quickly. But we have been together as Albany First United Methodist Church, Lebanon First United Methodist Church, and Sweet Home United Methodist Church since July of this year. And today we are participating. We've encouraged people to participate in our field trip Sunday. We have invited everyone to come and worship at Sweet Home United Methodist Church this morning, but we also have opened all of our worshiping spaces today. And so welcome to all of you who are joining us either in person or online through our South San Diego Circuit YouTube page, or maybe you're worshiping in Albany this morning or in Lebanon, or from the comfort of your home. Welcome. In addition to celebrating this field trip day, we are also celebrating an anniversary for one of our congregations. Sweet Home United Methodist Church is celebrating 75 years together, and so it is a joy that we get to do that today together with one another. And so on this day that is historic for our community, that we'll be able to look back on for years to come, and also a day that we're already looking back on previous history from the last 75 years of Sweet Home United Methodist Church, I thought that we should look back to our roots. So we are beginning a new series today. As we have been connected to one another, one of the things that is our primary connection across our three congregations is our United Methodist history and our connection as a United Methodist Church. And so as we enter into our next 3 weeks of worship together in this stewardship season, we are returning to our roots, is the name of our series, and we're focusing on the 3 simple rules that are attributed to our founder, John Wesley. So as we step forward in this journey together, I invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer. Loving and gracious God, let your word be heard, lived, loved, and celebrated. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each one of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, for you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. As we have been getting closer to today and to this historic day for our community and for Sweet Home community, there's just been this buzz of excitement, and it's been a beautiful thing to witness as a pastor. I know that times of transition can be challenging, and there's always a lot of questions, and we have been journeying through a lot of our questions together. And questions will continue to arise, and we'll do our best to answer them as they do. And so, like, today being together in our field trip is an answer to one of our questions of how we get to know each other, being a joint community. And it's fun to see, and I'm excited. I'm recording this specific message so you can peek behind the curtain a little bit. I am recording this on Thursday, and so I'm looking forward to Sunday and being physically together as 3 communities. And while we are together and questions have come up, I thought it was important for us to return to our roots, and that's where this series has come about, returning to our roots, the 3 simple rules. There's been a lot of questions about how we got to this place, how we found ourselves as 3 communities now, discovering what it means to be together. And while some things have answers, other things do not have answers. And I know from personal experience that sometimes that's exciting and sometimes that's frustrating. And so one of the questions that we get a lot, or I do, at least as the pastor, is, so what now? Like, we are together. What does that mean? What are we going to be as this connected community? And I know from the looks on faces when I respond, and even from my own heart who wants an answer, that my answer of, I'm not sure, we could do so many different things, is part exciting and part scary. And that's okay. That's where we are, and in life we don't always get to have all the answers. And so I thought we could find a centering space, and the first thing that came to my mind was our Wesleyan teaching of the 3 simple rules: to do no harm, to do good, and to stay in love with God. And so that is what we're going to focus on for the next 3 weeks. Today, starting with our first rule of doing no harm. These rules come from our founder, John Wesley. I'd be curious to know if you have learned these before, or if this is something new for you. So feel free to let me know. But there are a couple of places where we can find these rules, and so I brought some of those today. Our rules come from our founder, John Wesley, and it was important to him as Methodism was coming about, as this was being formed. It wasn't a church, it was a movement in its very beginnings. And the core focus was that there should be a connection between Christian doctrine and Christian living. And so what came from that was the 3 simple rules. And so we have this book, which is the most common place people will find the 3 simple rules and study them together. It's the 3 Simple Rules, A Wesleyan Way of Living by Reuben P. Job. It's this tiny little book, but there's so much in here to learn. So oftentimes I find that most churches have done studies on this specific book, either Bible studies, Lenten studies. There's spaces in our book of discipline. And our book of discipline is our governing book, has everything you can imagine in here, from our Constitution to some of our history, to if you ever find yourself on a committee, like a finance committee or a staff parish relations committee, in here you'll have all of your rules about how you are to be the staff parish relations committee. It's like how to become a ordained clergy person. It's all laid out in here. But what we're going to focus on today is where you can find the 3 simple rules. The Book of Discipline works primarily on what is known as paragraph numbers and not on page numbers. And so I have here the 2016 Book of Discipline, And you can also find this online. So if you just Google, it'll come up and you can read it in an online format for free, which is helpful because sometimes it comes with a search engine and you can look up whatever you would like to find in the Book of Discipline. We turn to paragraph 102 and we go to the section Doctrine and Discipline in the Christian Life. We can find our 3 simple rules. And so it starts with what we just talked about. It says that no motif in the Wesleyan tradition has been more constant than the link between Christian doctrine and Christian living. And then it goes on to tell you about the general rules of the church and where you can find some of Wesley's teachings. But then if you go down farther, it tells you he, being John Wesley, spelled out this expectation in the 3-part formula of the rules. First, by doing no harm. Secondly, by doing good. And thirdly, by attending upon all the ordinances of God. And that's our stay in love with God, number 3. It's named in a couple of different ways, but staying in love with God is its most common reference. And then if we turn to paragraph 104, you will find more description. So that kind of just starts with what are the 3 simple rules. It names them. But in the next paragraph, you'll find in paragraph 104 more explanation of what doing no harm means. And so in each of the rules as you go forward. So that's another space in which you can find 3 simple rules, and it gives examples of doing no harm, doing good, and staying in love with God. As we go through our series, returning to our roots, each week we're going to take a different one of our rules and explore a bit more about that rule. And as we do so, I'd invite you to have hearts and minds open, as we always encourage when we are learning together, but to also be thinking about our new community, to be thinking about the South San Am circuit, and to think about how these rules can maybe be a guide for us, or help remind us who we are called to be as United Methodists, and help to inform us in where we are going together. And so with that being said, we are starting with our first rule today of doing no harm. So as I prepared for our time together and to take this mindset of being a new community, searching for guidance of who we are going to be as a collective community, I found something that stood out to me in this book, The 3 Simple Rules, and the focus on doing no harm. In the very first page of doing no harm, there is this centering teaching that has stuck with me throughout the past couple of weeks. It shares, when we agree that we will not harm those with whom we disagree, conversation, dialogue, and discovery of new insight become possible. When our words and our actions are guarded by this first simple rule, we have time and space to think about consequences before a word is spoken or an action is taken. I found this part of the teaching really foundational and important in a beginning of something, or in a relationship with one another, that if we can be intentional about the kind of environment we are creating, It allows and creates space for the rest of the rules that are to come, the doing good and the staying in love with God. Creating a safe space is foundational in our doing no harm teaching. That if we are mindful and intentional about the words we are using and the actions we are taking, it allows room and almost this like sigh of relief of I can be fully present here as who I am and who God created me to be. When we bring people together, we know that there are going to be differences because we're not all carbon copies of one another, that we are all uniquely created, and we all have various viewpoints and understandings and ways of being, and sometimes those things bring us together and cause us to get along, and sometimes those things cause friction in relationship with one another. But if we can create spaces in which we can be mindful and intentional about our language and our actions, it opens up room for people to be vulnerable, for the continued growth as a community to do the work that God calls us to do. And it starts by not doing something. I found that interesting as well in our 3 simple rules, that it's the only rule that calls for not, for doing no harm. And by not doing harm, it is allowing us to do good and to stay in love with God. We are all striving to be the best people that we can be, to live into our teachings as followers of Christ and as United Methodists. And as we return to our roots and John Wesley's focus on how our doctrines and our way of living should not be separate things, but should be connected, I would encourage us to be mindful of our words and our actions, that our words and our actions are reflective of this teaching of doing no harm. This week I invite you to take some reflective time for yourself, to jot down some ways in which you hope and dream for us to be as a community of faith, and how is that reflective of this teaching of doing no harm as we return to our roots and attend to these teachings. Amen.